Welcome to the Hilarity Ensues podcast, hosted by Donna, the queen of quick wit, and Jeff, the dean of devious double entendres. Together, they're on a mission to find the funny in life using nothing but their critical thinking skills and sarcasm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hilarity Ensues. I'm your host, Donna, and Jeff will not be joining us here today. We actually recorded this episode earlier and ran into some technical difficulties during the edit. And since he's 3 hours ahead of me, I had to come in late and get this episode uploaded for you guys. I want to remain committed to publishing content every morning for you guys. So today's show, can't read and definitely can't count, is what I'm going to call it. And today we're going to dive into America's growing illiteracy rate and math crisis. And this was all basically, it started after a simple trip to a store for me yesterday, where I went in and I purchased something. And my purchase was $10.56. And I did something that I haven't done in a long time. I used cash. And I handed the cashier a $20 bill. And because I'm a Gen Xer, I do mental math really well. And I'm going to challenge you, what do you think my change should be? And if you said $9.44, ding, 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 you are correct. That is the correct change. Unfortunately for me, the cashier handed me back one $5 bill, four singles, one quarter, one nickel, and four pennies. And again, if you did the calculation, you'll clearly see that is not $9.44. So I said to her, I said, hey, this is short. This is 9:34. I was supposed to get back 9:44. And she kind of looked at me like I was speaking Cantonese, like what do you mean? And so she opens up the register and I said, you owe me a dime. And she looks down, she's like, oh, I don't have any dimes. And in my head, I'm like, you don't have any dimes? So you just opted not to give it to me because you didn't have any. But here's the thing, two nickels equal 10 cents, 10 pennies equal 10 cents. Now, if she'd have pulled out 10 pennies, I would have told her to keep that because I'm not walking around with that much change. But she didn't understand that. And I said, you could give me two nickels. And she kind of still looked like I was speaking Cantonese, but it was becoming a little bit more familiar to her. And she handed it to me and she apologized. And because I like the store and the chain, I won't say the name of the store, but it brought something to mind for me is that we are becoming more of a cashless society where most people are opting to use their debit card, their credit cards in lieu of cash. And this all started with the panoramic back in 2020, where a lot of stores decided not to take cash because cash is dirty. And cash has always been dirty, but during the panoramic, it was a lot more dirtier, apparently. I don't know. And to this day, there's some businesses that have elected to kind of stay in line with being cashless. And the thing about being cashless is that it doesn't create that mental exercise of math, adding, subtracting, offering change. And I grew up during a time where our cash registers weren't as advanced as they are now. And there were times where people would do things like you had a bill, a supermarket bill for $24.01, and a person would hand you $25 after you rung it in. And then they would hand you the penny after, and you just knew, okay, they hand me the penny, I give them back a dollar. I've noticed over the past few years that's become a significant challenge for people working a register. Meaning, if I do something like that after you've already put in the amount tendered, it's almost like, and I had one cashier tell me, hey, the machine tells us what we're supposed to give you back, so I can't do anything different. And what that really translates into, I'm not comfortable or confident in doing the math myself, which I think it's sad. It is really sad. And, I do remember, I want to say it was like in the 90s, maybe the 80s, McDonald's started putting pictures of their food on the register. So rather than entering in a quarter pounder or Big Mac, they just had the pictures of it. And people were in such an uproar. They're like, we have to put pictures on things. We're encouraging people not to read. And fast forward, here we are. We're encouraging people not to do basic math. And that is sad. We are losing basic skills. Even in schools, people are relying on calculators and apps to solve problems for them. Okay. Kids are no longer memorizing multiplication tables. Mental math is disappearing. Autocorrect, because we're no longer writing papers freehand. People are writing them on computers. So autocorrect and grammar corrections are automatically done by your computers. GPS is destroying our sense of direction. There was a time where you had to read a map. You had to know the difference between north, south, east, and west when you look at mile markers on a road. Here's a quick tip if you didn't know this. If you're on an interstate and it's an even number, that interstate is traveling west to east, east to west. If you're on an interstate that ends in an odd number, it's traveling north to south, south to north. But there are a lot of people that don't know that. They get challenged when they get on a highway. They don't know north from south. So that's sad. People are relying on GPS. And don't get me wrong, I use Waze and Maps out here in California simply just for traffic patterns. Not because I don't know where I'm going, but traffic out here in these LA streets are real. So Maps kind of helps you in navigating and avoiding those traffic clusters. But here's another comparison. As a Gen Xer, we learned how to balance checkbooks, simple debits and credits, doing the math on that. Now, granted, I haven't had a checkbook in over 10 years, but I understand how to add and subtract. And there are many people out there that have never experienced that world because we live in a Zelle, a Venmo, a Cash App society where we can put our bills on auto pay, we can pay online, so we don't have to write out a physical check. This is something I had a conversation with Jeff recently too, memorizing phone numbers. There's around 8 to 10 phone numbers that I know still by heart because a lot of people I know have had the same phone numbers for years and I just remember them. But I challenge you, how many phone numbers do you know by heart? If you lost your phone today, how many phone numbers could you recall? And that also is the other mental exercise that we're losing is memorization, is challenging your brain. There's a lot of other things that challenge your brain. There are games like Sudoku. I remember crossword puzzles, word searches. All of those things are brain exercises, and we're straying away from them because we're caught up in the doom scroll of Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. We rely on our phone heavily to do things, even for our cards, Apple Pay. If you lose your phone, what disadvantage would you be at if you lost your phone? Here in America, okay, and this is why I'm really encouraging you to do those mental brain exercises because it's twofold. We're aging, and when you don't use it, you lose it. And what you don't want to be is 60 something years old and having Alzheimer's and dementia simply because your cognitive abilities have declined because you haven't exercised them. Also, to note, here in the US, you know what? We perform surprisingly below average compared to other international education comparisons. Okay. And we do focus on a lot on education in many ways. We focus on testing and common cores, but when it comes to the fundamentals of things, such as we took out cursive writing out of school years ago because we said there wasn't a need for it. And what do we have? We have a bunch of people with really bad handwriting. Cursive writing actually exercises a part of your brain too. We don't do that anymore. If I write something in cursive now in a card and I'll say a Gen Alpha sees it, they can't read it because that's not their world. They didn't grow up in that. And countries like Singapore, South Korea, Japan, Finland, they routinely outperform us here in the US when it comes to math and reading. Most Americans read at an eighth grade level. Newspapers, well, they're not in existence really anymore. But there was a time you got a paper, newspaper, New York Times, Daily News, New York Post, Wall Street Journals. Those were my newspapers of the time. I know we have the LA Times here. Newspaper articles are written on an eighth grade reading level. Intentionally, they want them to be easy to comprehend by the average reader. And that's a little sad to say that we have to dumb down things based on our educational system or lack thereof. Bottom line is, when it comes to mental exercises, reading is another part of that. People don't read anymore. There's contracts, there's disclosures, there's manuals, there's books, the warning labels, and instructions. Anytime you sign up on a site, they have terms and conditions. How many of you read those terms and conditions? Now, bottom line, if you want to open up a Google or Gmail account, in order to do so, you have to agree to their terms and conditions. But do you realize what you're forfeiting when you hit I accept? And most people don't. And they get caught in it. And it's in many ways, it's by design to kind of dumb us down as a country. So we're easy to market to and we buy in with less resistance. We've become so accustomed to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, that if it's longer than a minute, we might not even listen to the entire video. We definitely won't read an article. And here's the other thing is that someone will do a caption on Instagram and they'll say, click the link for the full article. And you click the link and it brings you to a paywall for whatever magazine or news publication it is. So people click out of that. And when I say a paywall, I mean that they want you to go ahead and subscribe to see the full article. And it might not even being you have to pay for the subscription. They just want to capture your data. And most people will opt out of that. So we don't really create a culture or an environment where it encourages people to read. And people in turn, they formulate an opinion based off of a snapshot, a 15-minute, snippet of something. They formulate an opinion and they think they know it all. So I just really want to encourage everyone out there. Yeah, read through things. Reading is fundamental. That was something that was big in the 80s, 90s. Reading is fundamental. And I think technology is removing the everyday brain exercises, and we have to make a conscious effort to incorporate that back into our day to day. New York Times has Wordle, there's Sudoku, which is problem solving and reasoning and sequencing. There is word searches where it's like another exercises. Do some of those things. You don't have to spend hours upon hours. Wordle is like a 5 minute at best exercise to it's kind of like a word search where they give you five chances to figure out what the word is. But it sharpens you. Create challenges with your family and friends on things like that. When you go to the supermarket, here's something interesting. I was telling Jeff this earlier. When I was younger, my family would grocery shop on Friday. My father would be the one that grocery shopped, and I would go with him. My father was an accountant, okay? And the game that we played in the supermarket was who could come closest to the total, okay? Who could come closest to the total? And we'd go through it, and I would do mental math, and I would calculate stuff, and he would calculate, and we'd get to the register, and he's like, how much do you think it is? And we both say what we thought it was. And I will never forget the time that I beat him and I came closest. In hindsight, looking back, he probably let me win, but it's something I still do to this day where I go into the supermarket or I go into some, and I kind of run a loose calculation. I'm not competing with my father anymore. So it's a loose calculation. But you know what? In many instances, that has stopped me or prevented me from being overcharged for something. It's made me financially aware of what's taking place here. So that's another exercise, something fun to do. Give me your thoughts and tell me if that's something that you did. How did that go? But I'd be curious to know. Other things besides reading cursive that people can't do anymore. Reading an analog clock, okay? An analog clock. And here's the extra challenge. If the analog clock has Roman numerals or just dashes, it doesn't have any numbers. That's a challenge for people because we're in a digital age and people are used to reading digital. You know what? Whatever cell phone you have has a setting for you to flip it to analog. Give yourself a challenge. Sharpen your skills of reading analog, okay? Try spell checking without spell check on your own. Drive somewhere without the GPS, okay? Or this way, you might, you know what? Turn it on, see what traffic tells you where you're going, and turn it off. And be aware when you're driving, sharpen those skills. The next time you go into a restaurant, here's the other thing that it contributes to us not using those math skills is that when we go into a restaurant, on the check, they automatically add the tip in at the bottom. Do you want to tip 18%, 20%, 22%? And they tell you what that is. Here's a newsflash. Some of these restaurants are catching you out there too in that calculation. So figure out how to calculate 10%. And once you calculate 10%, that's an easy calculation. Just double it for 20. See if that's something you're able to do. Try remembering one phone number a week. Okay. Try remembering one phone number a week and dial it on your phone. And here's a newsflash. If you're right, the name will pop up so you'll know you're calling the wrong person. But these are some of the things that I think we really need to get back to basics on. And we need to focus on sharpening those skill sets. I think it's a shame that we're in 2026 and we're producing adults that can't do basic math and that can't read. Okay. And or they're reading at or below an eighth grade level. I think that's really sad and we need to do better. And it starts with us. We can't wait for, the government to take care of us. We have to start and take care of ourselves on our own. We have libraries in every single community. You know what's free? A library card. 3% of the population has one. Another challenge, go out and get a library card. Learn something new once a month, once every other month. Again, sharpening those skills. And that's what we have for today. I want to thank you for joining us here today. Please support our channel. Please listen to the broadcast all the way to the end. We do need these download numbers. Our channel is growing beautifully and organically, and we appreciate you as listeners. Please like and subscribe so you can get notifications of all of our uploads on all of our streaming channels. You can also follow us at Hilarity Ensues Pod on TikTok and on Instagram. And also, if you have questions or you have show ideas, please feel free to email us at hilarityensuespod@gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, we may not have all the answers, but we'll definitely make you think. Thank you for tuning in and goodbye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Hilarity Ensues. Our fantastic music soundtrack is brought to you by TL Music Productions exclusively for Hilarity Ensues. Be sure to connect with us on social media by following Hilarity Ensues Podcast.